Welcome to Dr. Margaret and Dr. Katie Speaks. As you probably realize, Dr. Katie is not with us because she is dealing with a lot of changes in her life relative to her citizenship and many other things that she needs to get straight. So here I am doing a sort of catch up on the shows that we've been doing for a very long time. I want you to really understand that there are things that come together in different ways, and so in a sense what I'm going to do is do a kind of review on various things that we've talked about, but relative to the topics that we've been going to do for the past month. And I must apologize to everyone that we haven't done our show because we've been so up to date with things that were not up to date, as it were, getting changes made, looking at new ideas on how to put our work together out there for the people of the world to listen to. So I'm grateful that you're listening to me right now. And of course the topic of today was the fear of failure versus success, and the isolation and assimilation of various things that we do in integrating ourselves with other people. So I'm going to talk about the soul fears, and I'll say them again: fear of failure, success, separation, and assimilation. So how does that affect you? Well, there may be times when your state of mind is contemplating the many situations that you feel you should be dealing with, and of course you sit down and muse on the possibilities, the ultimate potential of making a choice. And of course when we make a choice, we assume that everything's going to turn out well, and of course we encounter the unknown factors, and those unknown factors weigh upon us heavily as we try to sort ourselves out. Over the years that I've been doing my own radio show, Journey into an Unknown World, that is now up on soundcloud.com /Ask Dr. Margaret. So you can see all those 10 years. I got to remember, it's a long time ago. 2010 I started, and I was doing 2 shows a month, so you can pretty well work out there are a lot of shows that I have up on soundcloud.com, Journey into an Unknown World and Ask Dr. Margaret. And so whatever you're into, I hope you're going to find a show that I've made somewhere in time that will help you overcome your issues today. So States of Mind is one of the shows that we did, Katie and I together, in various concepts between my age being nearly 80 and her age being half my age. So the integration of words, for example, is very different. We all in our own way learn technology and learn the words that mean something in terms of technology, and yours truly doesn't know them. So please forgive me if I don't use modern words. However, you, if you're listening, are a younger generation, I'm sure you have lots of words that you might use. But when you're talking to Granny, Grandpa, their eyes go blank and they really, and you see my facial expressions. I'm really saying, I haven't a clue what you're talking about. So our state of mind in a conversation with ourselves is to find the creative aspect, the inventor within us. And of course we want to fit in with society. We want to be able to be understood and taken care of in many different ways by the people that we talk with. And they in turn are looking at you, hoping you will sort them out and help them in some way. And of course our creative counselor part of self will come forward, and we will actually find some method or some way in giving advice. Well, where does this come from? So What I wanted to work with you today is to understand that your journey is a very personal one for you, and yet we are brought up to believe that we have to integrate everything that we are with everyone else. And of course, if we open ourselves up to be with everybody around us, we are actually mirror imaging the soul structure fear of embracing the oneness. And when we think about embracing the oneness, we think about God giving us our wishes come true, and that ultimately that will lead us to success. And if we talk about the soul structure coding from the point of view of the soul fear of success, it is an arduous journey. It's like climbing that mountain, and every step, every foot mark that you make, every footprint somewhere on that journey up the mountain has been hard work. But when you get to the top of the mountain, you've got the view of your journey. And in looking at yourself and understanding that you've done more than you ever expected you would have to do in your journey to get to success, you realize that you've changed a lot, that you have become more aware of your idiosyncrasies, of your fear of failure, and I'll go there in a minute. But while you're so up and hyped to want to be successful, you don't want to look at the fear of failure, and yet somehow it's niggling underneath that journey. And little by little, caution arises. Caution is like saying, look before you leap. Make sure you have all the facts first. But of course, if the facts keep changing on a daily basis, day in, day out, how can you keep up with changes? How can you always be on top of the situation? How can you always be very aware in some way of how to adapt and how to become much more than you are? And even if you are aware, is it stressful? Is it driving you crazy that you have to keep adapting day in, day out? Well, technology forces us to do that, doesn't it? You might download a program on your phone. It's the latest app. You've just about struggled with it and learned how to use it. And believe you me, I have that every day of my life, wondering what I'm doing with my phone. And then all of a sudden somebody says, oh, you're still using that app. It's out of date now. It's a month later. There's a new version. You have to download that so that your phone will work well, because it's dependent upon linking with all the other things you've got. Hey, that sounds good, doesn't it? Everything's got the same thing in it. It wasn't for me. I found that the more complicated it became with too many things all tied into one another, that I didn't know how to separate anything. Now that's what our mind is like, the state of our mind. How do we separate all the good stuff from the bad stuff when the bad stuff keeps knocking on our face, on our ears, on our mouth, on our body, in the way we express ourselves? It keeps telling us, oh, you need to learn more. Oh, you need to adapt. Oh, you need to transform your point of view. Hey, you have to kill off the many ideas you've had because they're out of date, and now you have to be inventive. But what am I going to do? What do I need to do? What can I do? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Question marks lead to worry marks. And where do worry marks go? They go right down into the soul fear of failure. So let's look at failure for a minute. You're a tiny tot. You've seen some very sparkly thing on a table and you want to touch it. And without anybody noticing, you kind of stroll across the room and everyone is suddenly watching you because you're standing, you're walking, you have desire, you have passion, you want to touch that sparkly thing. And so you run across and maybe you fall on your butt a couple of times, but you get up and everyone in the family is laughing because you're walking, you're falling, you're standing, and they think it's wonderful. And all you see is not them. You see that sparkly thing. And finally you get there, but you can't reach it because it's on the table and you can't see it now. And you're losing your balance, and before you know it, you're hanging on to a tablecloth that is sliding, and that thing that was so pretty falls on your head, and it hurts. And everyone has watched you, has rushed over to try and prevent that very thing from happening. But they were so involved in watching you walk and sit and plop and walk and sit and plop. Hey, they weren't thinking about the danger of that thing coming onto you and hurting you. Well, you don't remember doing that, but I'm sure you can assimilate that idea and realize that when you are trying to do something as a young infant and you make a mistake, it's hurtful. It upsets you. You feel like you've done something you shouldn't. And then with all the adults, siblings, whoever's around, trying to protect you from your own journey across that room, you are now crying. You feel miserable. Okay, they pick you up, they rub you down, they make you feel better, they G you up in the air and back up and down, trying to stop you crying. But what you don't realize is that you're going up and down in the mirror image of success and failure, success and failure. So you had success walking across the room to reach the table, and you had failure because the thing you wanted, you never got to touch it, or you didn't know you had it touch you on your head or something. And so the moment is lost, but not in your brain and not in your soul structure coding, because you know you aspired to try and somehow you didn't make it. Failure. And so that is encoded in your brain as a very young infant, allowing you to realize that there are going to be things in this world where you will try and you will fail. And there's going to be other things where you really thought, I didn't want to be successful, I just want to hang loose here. And suddenly you're pushed forward and everyone acclaims you as very talented, very skillful, and do more. And you look at what you've done, you think, well, it's just something I did. It wasn't an aspiration. I didn't feel that I had to be successful with this. It was just something I do. But you see, the soul structure coding in your RNA and your DNA is working. Every day of your life, it's working. It's inspiring you to try again. And of course, as you keep trying, you begin to know that the more you do, the better you become. And over time, as you grow up with people talking and teaching you about the creative side, for example, you're sitting on the floor, you've got a bunch of crayons, and you scribble all over that piece of paper, whatever it is you've got, and everybody says, oh, well done, you're so clever, you like that crayon, you use it all the time, do you know what color it is, and so on, and you learn, and you say, from now on, that crayon is my favorite color. Let's make it red, because a lot of kids like red. But the years go by, and you find that red keeps bringing you bad luck. Why? Well, red is a dominant, pushing energy. And if you're dominantly pushing yourself on people and situations, maybe you're not so friendly to those people. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're frustrated. Yes, red is the color of blood. Red is the color of life. Red is what keeps you here on this planet. But who are you going to blame for all your mistakes? All the things that people told you could do and then you found out you couldn't do? Or all the things they said you were so talented at, but when you got older, nobody bothered or wanted to hear your talents? Isn't it frustrating? One wants to get angry with everyone. One wants to run away and leave. You see, the Sophias say, if you're successful, take time out on your high horse, as it were, and survey the view and understand how your journey up that mountain, foothold by handhold, got you there. And in the process of getting you there, without that struggling, without that making mistakes, without that slipping and sliding down the hill from time to time, motivating you then to hey, I don't want to fall, I don't want to be a failure. Struggle some more, climb back up, keep trying. So the sole fear of success is your goal, it's your ambition. And though you don't know what it is on a conscious level, I can tell you, you have an instinct, an intuition. So here's my little story. As soon as I could talk, I could hear voices telling me to say things to other people, which I did. And so those people were very grateful for the messages I gave as a child medium, proving survival of life after death for their loved ones killed in the war, or that they were prisoner of war, or that they were on their way home because they'd been wounded. I could tell these messages to the adults, and they loved me for that. But did I understand what someone coming home meant to them? Of course not. Did I understand that hearing that someone's in the spirit world and telling them they're loving them and always remember them? I didn't know about the spirit world. I hadn't learned about it yet. I was just a parrot repeating things to the adults. And in the same way, I want you to understand that you too, no matter where your circumstances, no matter what life you're living, no matter whether there's a war or it's very peaceful around you, in those early years, up to 3 years old, you were just a parrot repeating whatever you'd heard the adults saying, or your siblings or whoever they were, and believing that that was a way to talk and that was a way to have your point of view, and so you're a copycat. But underneath that, there was a little ding-dong bell going on in your head that said, I can be more than that. And when you started to discover your creativity and to realize you could draw, and like that red color I talked about, or maybe you liked a lavender or a purple. We don't know what you liked because you didn't know what you liked at that age. But ultimately, something pulled you to it. And colors are the vibration of the oneness. So when you think about your aura and you're angry, yes, you're flaring out darts of red. If you think about meditating and speaking to God in humble prayer, you're shooting out lavender. If you're thinking you're making a sacrifice and you're going to do something on the part of someone else, but it's hassle when you have to put yourself out, okay, you're putting out purple. And what is purple? It's a mixture of blue, I understand logically, I'm thinking what I have to do, and red, saying I need to find the energy and the time and the effort to help this person. So your aura is a heavy purple. Now, if you aspire to be talking to your spirit guides, then you bring in the white light. Yes, you have all the colors of the rainbow. Obviously, I'm not going to go into all of that now, but if you are truly interested in how the colors vibrate throughout not only our world, but the cosmos and the universal consciousness of all that is, as well as to understand that every color is a resonation of sound, then you might like to get a copy of my life book. In other words, you need it your whole life. You'll always go back and read parts. It's called Journey, let me think, I have to stop and think, sorry. Journey into an Unknown World, The Way to Oneness Revisited. Okay, it was originally just published under Journey into an Unknown World, but I've added to it over the years. It's full of meditations for you to record in your own way. You take the words, embellish them, add bits and pieces that you like, and then listen to your own voice. And when you listen to your own voice in a meditation, it's very, very powerful. Why? Because you're not relying on someone else to tell you what to do, as you did as an infant. And that gives you every opportunity to tell yourself what to do as an adult or as a teenager. Because yes, you've got your own mind now. So understanding that we are copycatting in the beginning with the soul structure coding of I try, I fail, I try, I succeed. In the infancy level, you begin to understand I can and I can't, I shall and I shan't, those kinds of words. And so when people come up to you and say, do some more, oh, I'm ready, I can do some more, and they tell you don't do it, okay, then I'm afraid to do anything. It's put fear in me. I might fail, so I don't want to do it again. It hurt me last time. It hurt me emotionally, physically, mentally, or spiritually in some way. I'm standing back. I'm not going to do it. So even when the adults come over and talk to you at 4 years old and say, you could do this now, if you feel that you've learned under 3 years old to be insecure and unstable and aware of failure, then it's going to be hard work to get you to put that idea down and recover the idea of success and say, okay, I'm coming out of the corner, I'm going to go and do it. So what does it take? It takes your creative self, just like it took you the ability of taking a red crayon and scribbling all over a piece of paper. And in time, when you learn a little bit more about the colors, to want to use them all. And so in the same way, once you integrate what you feel and what you think with the way of life and the circumstances you're living in, then the creative self will be inspired to invent a new way to be. And by mixing the soul fear of failure and success, or success and failure, according to the circumstances you're in, you will decide in some way to be the inventor and create your journey through whatever you're learning at that time. So who are you going to become? I'm sure when you were a little child, you had no idea really what you were saying you wanted to be. I know all my sons said at some time they wanted to be a fire engine driver or a police car driver, and that they wanted to go skiing or doing something that personally I would not do. And I would just say to them at the time, wow, that's very interesting. You like cars? Yes, I like cars. Why do you like cars? Because Daddy fixes cars. Okay. Why do you like a fire engine? Well, Daddy drives big trucks, so I think I'd like to drive something really, really big too. These are 2- and 3-year-olds that could talk very well and who had a strong idea in association with what they'd seen, and when asked the question, copycat Daddy. Okay. Now, I didn't have any girls, so there was no one running around in my bedroom or living room or anywhere else looking at what I had in the feminine sense. So I didn't have to deal with that. But there are mothers out there whose children are saying, I don't want to wear the clothes Mummy said. There are other children who are saying, I really want to wear the clothes Mummy had. Why? Maybe they were dressing up in Mummy's shoes and dresses at 3 years old and feeling like Mummy, in which case I have a positive outlook. On the other hand, maybe Mummy said, leave my clothes away, don't touch them, don't go anywhere near them, this is not for you. Okay, so the child says, I can't dress up, I can't play mummies and daddies, I can't pretend that I'm feeding my baby doll, and so on. And so they tend to become children who want to play on their bikes and scooters and whatever. So we develop tomboys, as we used to call children in England. Tomboys were girls who like to do all the things that boys do. And yes, I was a tomboy because my sister, she did all the playing with dolls and teacup parties and all these things when she was 3 onwards. Me, I didn't have a sister by then. She came along 4.5 years after I was born. So Daddy had already brought me into the world of climbing trees, kicking footballs, running around and enjoying myself on common land, picking berries and things like that. And by the time my sister arrived, I even had a pretend bow and arrow and a gun. Why? Because Dad played cowboys and Indians with me when we were in the common land. So you can see I was very much into the male side of myself. Now you might say, well, why would that be? Why would my dad do that? Why wouldn't he dress me up in pretty clothes? Well, Mum was sick, Mum was ill, Mum had lots of surgeries and things on her feet. So Dad was left to manage me. And Dad's experience from his childhood was so long ago in India that he had no memories of anyone telling him how to bring up girls. So I was brought up like a boy, okay? And I don't regret that, because in the overview, that taught me to look at leadership. So what is leadership? Leadership is understanding how one has to stand tall, strong in the face of adversities. And sometimes we are in rejection of change, and sometimes we are sacrificial in that we give up our hopes and dreams of things we want to do and move our energy over to be with others who are, shall we say, I want to say, impleading to us to give of our time and effort. Please help me, kind of thing. And there are others who are dominant and aggressive and come out and say, stop sitting in that chair and come and help me. So siblings in a family group can either be leaders or followers, and it all depends on those first 3 years of life. Now, with the soul structure coding coming into that, and I'm not talking too much about it here, but I will say that's what gives you your personality. So the soul fears give you the protection you need from whatever you're doing out there in the world. So when I say the soul fear of ascension, think about being most famous person on the planet for your talent and skill. And you have to go before a judge and demonstrate, even though you know you're good at what you do. You're going to be nervous. You're going to worry about whether you'll fail the performance, dry up, lose your words, forget the next step in the dance, whatever it is, in some way, you will be worrying about your performance. And when you do that, it's the soul fear of failure that is banging at the soul fear of success. Why? So you don't get too cocky, as we say in England, I'm the greatest thing, because if you are, then yes, you're definitely going to make a lot of mistakes because you are in your ego and you are buttering yourself up to say you're really the best thing in the century. And here I might say I am an avid watcher of America's Got Talent and Europe and the rest of the world's got talent, and I go and watch them. And you watch these people come on and they're very like, I do this and I do that. And we're all ready to hear what they have today do, because they've given us a big build-up, and they open their mouth and sing or act, and we're like, oh, that doesn't really suit me. I don't really like this. Zoom, buzzer, they're off the show. And then they go backstage and you hear them complaining that the judges don't know what they're talking about, and they've just let the greatest actor or actress or whatever they are of the century go by, and they're shouting, maybe acting badly backstage, and it makes good TV. But it certainly doesn't make good TV for them, because now everyone's decided that they've shown themselves up as steeped in the failure, not looking at the growth that they could get from that show to aspire to be a greater performer. That's just one situation. But if we bring it down to a younger age, when they're in school, and if the teacher is putting them down, like they're not doing their homework on time, or they're only writing a couple of sentences and so on, and the teacher announces to the whole class that that particular child is failing, well, she just, or he has just helped that child feel they are a real failure, and from that day on will never try to be more successful. In the other vein, we can see a teacher pulling up some child in front of the class and saying, this is a successful student. And suddenly they're not trying anymore, because they've been made to feel separate from the rest of the class because they are so clever. And so they hide away and they study and do whatever they want in their own way, and don't know how to integrate and socialize. So either way, Whether you're in the sole fear of failure or success, if you're in the negative aspect of yourself, where you've allowed what outsiders say about you to affect you, to push you into the opposite, the negative of whatever was happening, you have then made yourself a little program in your brain on a conscious level that says, I cannot make friends, I cannot socialize, I cannot do everything I want to do, therefore I'm a failure. And yet I know that when I'm left alone and I do my own thing, I can be quite successful. I'm a happy camper, being somewhere in the middle between successful and failure. And what happens? We eventually get bored with ourselves. We want something more dynamic to happen. And out of the blue, whether it's from failure or success, we act out of character and perform in some way that pulls other people in to watch us, so that we can learn the hard way that we need to come out of the box and find out who we really are. Now, all of this that I'm taught about has been taught on other shows, so I earnestly encourage you to go and listen to Dr. Margaret and Dr. Katie Speaks, because we've got quite a lot of shows that we've done over the past 2 years. All right? So who do we become? Who do you want to become, more to the point? Do you want to model on some superstar, some singer that is at the top of the list? I know that recently I said I want to start having singing classes again, because I used to sing opera and sung some shows. And my model today is to listen to the more younger people singing and see if I can put my voice into a different dynamic, where we're training, I can learn to sing a popular song instead of sounding like a wailing cat. Okay, that's my little journey right now for my pleasure. But we all need to go into our creative self and start something. And if you're a mother or a father listening, I want to say you cannot introduce that creative point of view of that child's abilities as soon as you notice them too soon. The amount of smiley faces you give, the encouragement, is wonderful. But don't be a mother or father that says you have to practice. There was one child that was a violinist, and brilliant child. And the desire and the passion was there to practice and practice. And so the result was we were entertained. I can also tell you I've seen children who've been dominated by their parents. Practice more. If you don't practice, you'll never be very good. And so they're practicing. And I even know one of my shows where I talked about a person who was the lead violinist, who the whole life had been about preparing and practicing. And she came to see me and said, I don't want to do this anymore. But we had to find a way to help her understand that what she was fantastic, and that there was room for other things to be brought up into equal levels. And I'm happy to say that she's doing the other things as well. So we all need advice and we all need comfort. But what are the other two? The other two are in the soul pair connection too. Like we said, success and failure are together. So we have separation and assimilation. Now, assimilation is like, come on everyone, we're going to a party, we're going to have a fun time, and we're all going to drink and drink till we're blind drunk. Okay? And so everyone turns up with their bottle, and everybody gets blind drunk, and everybody has a hangover the next day. Pass into the future, where more awareness is of more blind drunk parties. There comes a time when that individual will swing over to the other side and say, I am not going to be in that party and assimilate being drunk over and over and over again. I am going to go into the other end of the scale, to my other pair of assimilation, to separation. And I'm saying, no, I'm not coming to this party. Instead, I'm going to go and sit on the beach. And anyone who'd sooner sit on the beach with me with a bottle of Coke or orange juice or something is welcome to join me. then you become someone who is a leader in a way that says stop the madness and move on to something better, something improved. Well, we all have those moments. We always turn up in some situation and see a lot of negative things happening and loudly pronounce, why are you all doing this? This is ridiculous, blah, 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 and give a lecture. Well, of course, who wants to be lectured when they're not really open to whatever you're saying? So much better to come into a room and say, I can see you all having a wonderful time. If there's anyone who's not, I'm going to be down by the beach. You're welcome to join me, and leave. Maybe one person will turn up, but that's the one person you needed to reach. It's the same with families. If the family are all yelling and screaming, it only takes one child to, for example, leave the room, slam the door, and walk out of the house. Everyone, what's happened? Why's this? What's that? Run after, find, sort out. And all that child turns around and says, I hate you all because you never stop arguing. Okay? That's a big one. And there are children who say this all the time. Why do we argue? Well, it's because we're wanting to belong and be in the party and be a part of it. And then when it's overload, we want to be separate. We want to be on our own. So when we're on our own, we don't have any support. We don't have anyone helping us. But if we're with the party group, they're not helping me anyway. They're pulling me down with all the negatives they're doing. But let's flip it. What if everyone is not in a party scenario? Let's say they're all fundraising, trying to get enough money for local babies to have some kind of treatment. That's a good thing, isn't it? But is it good if everyone who's involved in it is killing themselves trying to make it work when there isn't any support? Maybe it takes being negative and on your own, as it were, from the situation, leaving, going outside the environment of where all these people are striving in some way to rebuild something or start something new. And they can't see anything because they're so locked into the original idea and desperately trying with the original ways and means. Person leaves, separates themselves, goes muse on, we use the ocean again, go sit by a lake or somewhere and muse on what they've seen going on in this group who's trying to do something so well and failing. And while they sit there, they suddenly feel, aspire to tap into their soul structure coding and the higher vibration of the soul fear of success, and pull down from their success mode inspired ideas, bringing it all the way down into their self like this, where they've been separated on their own, to muse, to receive that information from the oneness, or to awaken what was given to them at birth in their brain. They didn't know, but it is, shall we say, stimulated by the oneness, by God, by spirit guides, to get this idea and bring it out from the deep subconscious into the conscious mind. And then when they feel ready, they can write it out and put it all in formats that everyone can listen to, and then go trundling off to share it with the group who are assimilating all their ideas and going round in circles getting nowhere. And so this person turns up with, listen everyone, I have a new idea. We've never done this before. See what you think. Okay, so they all listen. Oh yeah, but we've put so much energy into the past, into doing this and this and that and that, and we're not giving up. We're never going to give up. We want to get those kids to have their medicine or whatever it is. And your idea, well, it's a bit way out for us, we'll consider it. And so you get back into the fold with all these people, and after weeks you start to think, this is never going to materialize what they hope. But my thing is, I'm going to go off and find a new group. And so maybe use Facebook or something, and you put up your idea, and suddenly out of the blue new people come. And they do see your idea, and they do connect with you. And with new plans and new technology and new everything, you aspire to do what these others were doing, going round in circles, getting nothing done. So where's the balance here? Well, the balance in the greater energy of a group of people coming together to fail is the soul structure fear of failure. And sometimes we need a group to show us just how mixed up and crazy we are. And right now, there's a tremendous amount of hearsay because that's what's happening. These groups are coming together and making reasons, which in their mind is reality, but they're actually not. They're hearsay. I've heard a little bit of this, I'll embellish it, and I'll say this is fact. Whereas those who break away from this kind of group organization will move into separation, listening to the soul structure codings from the spirit guides who give them inspiration to come up with new ideas. And because they're moving on, they're open to receiving other people who are also fed up, who've also failed, and they're ready to move on. So there's a unification that happens between separation and ascension into the vibration of the oneness, which is success. Something happens. Meanwhile, the group that's been in the assimilation is so confident that they're going to eventually raise the money and everything they want, are getting angry with one another, and they're causing upsets and separations within the organization, so nothing is getting done. And given time, they start to realize that they're failing, and the whole group falls apart. And everyone looking on goes, see, the old style and the old ways don't work. Meanwhile, your group is improving. So you're teaching the world that we must move on. So whatever you're doing on some level, if you're fixed in some kind of issue, whether you're with a group, your family, or on your own, you need to have a look at your soul fears. Which ones are you using? Are you using the soul fear of success in order to look at your fears of failure? Or are you using your soul failures in order to aspire to be successful? It's making changes, doing whatever you want. Are you breaking away from your family to find yourself and understand who you are as you aspire to be successful? Are you reaching out to other groups who are also successful so you can assimilate yourself with people who teach you how to do things the right way? Or are you sitting on your own doorstep commiserating with yourself how awful your life is because you're so alone, and not allowing you to be friendly with even your neighbor next door, who might have been able to tell you that there's a group that you could join that would give you all the help you need? Yes, we're all messengers. We all carry our past life experiences from what we've done in this life, as well as, when I say past life, I mean the things you've done from babyhood up to where you're at now. We all carry all of that. And we can build it up into a big stubborn part of self that says, I reject the world, I reject myself, I feel like I want to quit life, I want to kill myself. Or on the other side, I'll go out and I'll sacrifice my whole life for the purpose of someone else. I'll take care of someone else and pretend my life isn't important. And either way, you're running away from who you are and what you would like to be. You're running away from the true you. And we talked about the true self, and Katie and I talked about this on another show that you might like to go back to and listen. So let's move now into a new understanding. On another show we did, we were talking about beauty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But not everyone knows what beauty is. Why? Because they look at what is wrong. They look at what is ugly. So, for example, here's a very simple one. I went to school where we all had to wear the same uniform. And so whatever uniform we wore it was a rule. You couldn't not wear it. One of the things that I wore was a pretty dress in that school. It was a sort of checkered, double line, pretty dress, and I loved to wear it. Well, when I went nursing, I had to wear a pin-striped frock and a white big apron over the top of it. I hated that outfit because it was heavy on my body, though it was warm in the winter, but not very good in the summer. There were rules about how we folded our caps and how our aprons were pinned to our dresses and so on in those days. And any ward sister or matron could pull us up on the carpet, as we said, which means chastise us for not having our uniform look smart. One time I was helping a patient, and the nurse happened to notice at the top of my head nurse, that is, top of my shirt, apron, I get the right word out, was crooked. And it got crooked because my dress had got crooked while I was lifting a patient in bed. I wasn't allowed to explain. I was just told off. There were lots of times when people were told off by head nurses, matrons. Meanwhile, the doctors were running up to us and saying, "I think I should give this patient this medicine. What do you think?" I was absolutely appalled that the doctors were asking us, the nurse, what we thought was the best thing to give a patient. But you see, back in those days, life was different. You had to know anatomy, physiology in detail as a nurse. You had to know what the latest medicines were so that you could understand what the doctors were asking you to give and to do with the patient. Today, that's different. Everyone specializes. But guess what? When you specialize, you haven't a clue what else the other doctors are doing or the other nurses are doing. It may make life simple for you, like you know how to draw blood, and you do that over and over and over and over all day long. Well, when I was nursing, we had to draw the blood and send it down to the lab. Okay? If someone needed an injection, I had to give it. And we were trained how to give it intramuscularly. Okay? If we're in our third year, you could give one intravenously. So it takes time. It takes a lot of study. Today, we're given a lot of choices, overwhelmed with choices as to what we actually want to do. So young children coming in today are very much looking for direction, guidance. And in some cases, the parents have no idea about how their child wants to study or go and be and do something. There are others who say to their children, well, Mummy and Daddy are doctors, or we're working in a factory. This is a good job. It is a good job. You can aspire to be like us and you can do this job too. And then the children do it because they're told to do what they're told to do. And then they get into college and I can't handle this. I don't want to do this. This isn't what I want. There's too many restrictions. And we did a show on restrictions, how our mind wants to say yes and no at the wrong times, how we put our images together and rationalize that we believe what we believe with those images. Ultimately, as time passes, we understand that many of our images were complex, and many of those images were warnings or opportunities to break out of our shell. And when we have a level of outside laws, i.e. police, organizations like the AMA, who control and decide what a doctor can and cannot do and so on, there has to be some modulation, in other words, in the way we practice and do the things we do. But is our governments all over the world, is our people who are in those jobs in whatever countries they are all over the world, are they doing the job in the right way? Well, right now what we see is separation, coming back to the soul fears, separation, a lot of fear of being at the top of the tree and wanting to lead the people in success while people are trying to kill them or get them out of that post. So what kind of fear do you have when you're trying to do the best you can in a job and everyone's tearing you down? Maybe they're saying you failed when in fact you know you've aspired and changed something, but nobody knows it yet because you're still holding on to that information as a secret until you're more secure and you can share it. Well, we're in the Aquarian age now, and that's all about communication. So if you're holding a secret in, everybody knows you're holding a secret in, everybody wants to hear what the secret is, and everybody wants to know the truth. So if you're in a relationship and you're having an affair and you're not telling the other half, well, guess what? The other half already knows. They may not know the name or who, but they do know you're up to something because you change. You see, when you meet one more person, you change your point of view, and that changes your emotions, and that changes the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you pretend, or whatever it is in some way. Loud speakers are coming from your mouth, brain box, body language, and so on to the people who know you well. And so when you're hiding something, when you're restricting yourself from sharing, everyone knows it. And of course everyone's going to say, what are you up to? What are you doing? And if you insist, nothing, it's not long before they give up on you. They isolate you. And yes, you are forced to go into separation. But that's where you spend time wondering, why am I in separation? What am I supposed to understand about myself all on my own? What didn't I see when I was assimilating with my family, with my schoolmates, with my workmates and so on? What's going on? Why are they shutting me out? Because I've so often not let them into me. They've mirror image, they shut me out. I'm now on my own. I'm in separation. Do you like it? Are you happy? Maybe you are at first, until you start to realize you're missing people, you're bored, you want something else. And of course, when you go back out and talk to people, those people who were your friends have moved on without you. So now you have to find a new sense of this assimilation. What kind of people do you want in your life? What kind of relationships do you want in your life? How do they work? How do they talk? What do they do? Well, we did a whole show on that. The 5 senses. Bear with me, I have to have a drink. I'm talking all the time, get a dry mouth. And a cough. So relationships vary. They can be creative. So for example, I'm sorry, I do this every so often when I press a button in myself. I'm working on a book, my thesis, about beauty crystal and the way we encode our body as a baby. So, sorry folks, but I have to deal with it and show it and be a reality. So the reality is my throat chakra is where I speak about everything that I have happening in my life at different times. So as an infant, we cry, eyes water, we have runny nose when the eyes water, and we cough a lot when things go wrong. And we choke on food, we choke on liquids, and babies do all this. We're learning to use our body, and given time, we stand and walk and do all that, and given time, our soul coding kicks in. The soul fears are kicking in to teach us to be a leader, to not rest our laurels and let the world go by, but to get involved with it. And then it teaches us, get out of the situation you're in, stand alone, and see what you've learned so far. Reassess yourself, and then when you reassess yourself, go over and join some new groups and things like that. So there are people you've known in school that were a very, very big, strong influence to you. And here you are today and you can't even remember their name or can't even visualize their face. There are other people that you've never forgotten the looks on their face or the body energy in some way. Why would that be? Because you've marked them. You've made a very strong emotional connection with them, and you've kept it alive over the years by making a ribbon or a cord, as some people call it. This is an etheric ribbon cord that we talked about in another show, where, for example, let's say you were with a friend and you were having a drink and you both got pretty tiddly, and you're walking down the street to get home and one of you fell over and broke your wrist, and as a result had to go to hospital, and all sorts of things happened thereafter because you had a drink. That would be a memory that you would not forget. And the years would pass, you never see them again, but you remember the situation, and when you remember the situation, the poor me or the face that they had with the poor me is remembered. Now, here's the rub. You may not think about them 40 years later, but you have that ribbon still connected. And out of the blue, let's say 40 years later, your friend is ill and dying, and there's a correlation with breaking a wrist or something, whatever you broke or they broke, then there's a connection. And suddenly, out of the blue, for no reason at all, you suddenly feel the symptoms of your friend who's dying. And then, out of the blue, you see their face in your mind, or you make an association with someone else that you know that's having death issues. And you can't figure out why you got this, because nobody right now is dying around you. If you take a breath and if you sit down and ask yourself, what am I doing here? Search your body for a ribbon that seems to be active, or a cord, as I said earlier, some people call it that, and your mind will find it. You don't have, you just scan your body. It may look like a piece of rope, it may look like a piece of wire, it may look like a string of yarn. It could be anything that you've been focused on throughout your life. When you see it, in your mind's eye, get a hold of that issue, whatever it is. Let's say it's a string for now. And in your mind, follow that string until it brings you to a person, and you will find them, and you will know who they are. And when you see that, you can then in your mind cut that, get some scissors, or if it's something tough like wire, get some wire cutters in your mind so you can cut it, and then follow it all the way back to you. It could be on your shoulder, it could be under your armpit, it could be in your privates, who knows where it is. You've got to find it, and you cut it there. And then when you've done that, you bless the relationship that person was in your life, and you thank them in your mind's eye for being in your life. Now you wake up, and then you can get a piece of string in an ashtray and set fire to it, and your brain sees that piece of string is burned, and at the same time it makes association. You've cut the ribbon, so you will no longer feel the energy of that person. What will you feel the days later? You are free of that lesson that you learned so long ago with that person, whether it was good or bad. You'll feel happier, more content, and safe. So, cutting relationship cords, or ribbons as we call them, is something that you need to do annually. I cut my children, I used to cut my husband, whatever I needed to do, I would cut it every year and then make a new one through the following year. So one could say of a family member, who are you today after you've cut it? Now, they might know that you've cut it, or they may, depends how psychic they are. If they're psychic, they'll say, you severed yourself from me. And you just say yes, and we're going to build a new one now. And let's have a hug. If your child is constantly playing up that child is reacting to you when you are playing up. And when were you playing up? Probably when they were an infant. So, better to cut it and then have a hug and say, from now on, we'll talk differently. We won't bring up history. We won't talk about how it was. We'll talk about how it will be. So you change the focus when you cut the ribbon. Okay? So find that show and listen to that. Perceptions. Well, we have logical ones, we have emotional ones, we have all sorts of ideas about the people we like and don't like. You could, for example, see someone wearing a baseball hat. And out of the blue, you've never met them before, but for some reason, you hate them. Now, you don't know what that hate is about because you never met them. You haven't talked to them yet. They're just wearing a baseball hat. But maybe there's just a color in that baseball hat that reminds you of someone when you were a young person. So let's say you're 50 now and you were 12 when your local neighbor friend was out yelling at you kids for making a noise while they're trying to watch a football game. And it happens to be that they're wearing that cap. And that cap has certain colors in it. It's not the team, it's the colors. Remember, I'm going back to when you were a baby and you maybe scribbled with a red crayon. So some things that you have disliked through your life will merge into your conscious mind again when you see something that is an image that reminds you of something that happened a long time ago, which your deep subconscious then throws up through the subconscious into your conscious mind. And you have that image and you just say, I hate baseball caps. But you really don't. It's the association of long ago with that colour. And maybe someone else was wearing a clue to the baseball cap. For example, you could have been in a baseball field, or you could have been talking about baseball, or somebody else could have been talking about it. It doesn't have to be literal. It could just be that you were in a game store trying to buy a baseball. You just don't know where it's coming from, but you do know that when you have that association, it's saying there's something negative in your history that needs to be dumped. It's come up for a reason. It's there as a perception to say, change your perception. This is old history. You need to have new ideas. So what do? You go out and do something entirely different, something you've never done before, and you click, 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 click with your eyes, blink, blink, blink. Okay, in other words, you're doing your mouse with your eyes, and you're saying, I will remember this. And attached to it, an emotion, I'm happy. Of course, if you're miserable, you don't want to make that a happy, a memory. So the opposite. You want to not click. You want to stare at the wall and say, this is history, I don't need to remember it. Okay? And your brain will forget it. And even half an hour later, you'll be going, what was I upset about? Okay? Your perceptions change from moment to moment in a blink of an eye. Because every time you're blinking, and you can see me watching me looking at you, it's a natural thing because the fluid on the eyes needs to keep going over it to keep it moist, so you can see. Now, the interesting thing here is to understand that your eyes do not see the picture you're looking at. All you see is lines, circles, and then the brain processes all the shapes in your room. So I'm actually looking over the top of my computer and I can see a table, and on that table are a mass of stones, some oils, telling you what I'm seeing, glass balls that are for gazing into, to see what you can see with your inner eye. I've had them for years, since I was 16 or something, and they're just there as ornaments. And I'm looking at them now. I could say, I think I know everything's there, and then shut my eyes and try and recall what's there. I can see the table, I can see the things, but in order to really see it, I have to home in. And what do I see? I'm not going to cheat, but I'm going to tell you I'm not looking right now. But I can say I can recall a little lamp stand that has a candle holder in it. I can see the rocks, red ones, green ones, blue ones, but you can't see it, so there's no point in my proving to you that I can see in my head some of the things that are on that table. Okay? There was a party game when I was young that they would put a load of things on a tray, cover it with a tea cloth, bring it out and hold off, someone would have to be sat in a chair ready, and then someone would take off the tea towel and you have 1 minute to stare at that tray, and then it's closed down again with the tea towel. And now you have a piece of paper and you have to write down everything you remember, and everyone who's in the party gets the same treatment with that tray. And at the end, the one who has recalled the most items on that tray gets the prize, which is a wrapped present. Fun game to do, but more importantly, great to teach your mind to remember things. Your conscious mind only remembers for 3 seconds. And here I am nearly 80, and I can tell you I go into the larder, I have my idea I want to make a cup of tea, and I walk in there and I have to stand there for that second to let myself say, what was I going to get in this cupboard? And then the memory comes back of I'm thirsty, and with it a cup of tea, and I'm here for a tea bag. Of course, it's very quick. Your brain is moving faster than the speed of light, which was another thing we talked about on our show, Dr. Margaret and Dr. Katie Speaks. So when we have a perception of things we need, we may say it's very important right now, but 2 minutes later, maybe it wasn't so important because you've been diverted by something else happening that moved you off to a different idea. So I want you to understand that you are never in the same moment. 30 seconds later, you're in something else. 30 seconds later, you're in something else. Now shorten that down to 3 seconds from your conscious mind, you can realize why you forget so many things. When you look around and your eyes are just seeing the outlines of things, that's all that you're going to see. In order to know what the outlines are of that image, you need color. So training a child with color is very important. Color emits a light ray of some kind. And when that hits your eye and goes through your retina into the back of your brain would assimilate that color with all the other things you've seen in that color. And then from there it would assimilate to isolate something very similar, and up comes something in your mind in association with what you've seen. So for example, when I said I saw that candle holder that's in the shape of a lampshade with a candle holder, I was not looking over the top to see the candle holder. I had a memory that was coming from my deep subconscious in the days when I used it as a candle holder. And it also shows me the memory of the shade, which was made by someone for me, and it was made with like a glass window in a church. So lead shapes, nice patterns of leaves on it in the shapes. But no, my head didn't see the color, so I didn't see the shapes. If I look now, I can see where I'm looking at it, there are lines going across and down, and in the middle are different leaves. But I knew they were leaves, so I could say that without looking. So I want you to understand that your brain is constantly running so fast, faster than the speed of light, to find images for you that you've stored away in the back of your brain. It's looking for colors, it's looking for lines, it's looking for emotions, it's looking for mentality about those emotions, it's looking for your spirit self and the lessons you're learning, and all of that is in the blink of an eye, aha moment. And then you speak about it. And when you speak about it, you store it in your cells in your body forever. until you do something to change it. Okay, and it's adapted. So energy comes from talking, doesn't it? Sound, vibration, reverberation. We did a show on sound. There's sound deep in the bowels of the earth. The lava is making rumbling noises. Rocks are falling in caves that are collapsing. Water is running all through the land that is below us that we can't hear or see. However, with a divining rod, we could go out and look for that water. Or we could look for gold, a gold seam somewhere in the mountains. And there are people who do that, and they're very accurate because they're using psychometry, the psychic sense of feeling energy, to douse with a rod of some kind, and in the process of doing that, then believe what they've done, go prospecting, and find what they're looking for. There are other people who go out and do it, and their modus operandi, I can't even say that, thank you, Spirit, modus operandi, thank you, it is to be able to have the right emotions when you're doing it. So if you're dowsing with greed, and you believe you want to find gold and will find gold through greed, you won't find any gold. You might find a piece of sand that looks goldish, but you won't find the gold because you're in greed. And what its greed do is destructive. You hoard and you get too much and you never get access to using it the right way. So, okay, you can find a gold mine, but you'll never be able to get it out. Too deep or something. So, I want you to understand that when we talk about sound, your voice can be very nurturing or very disturbing. I was in a restaurant with a friend not too long ago, and there was someone who was talking like this. Sorry if I shocked you. I was so uncomfortable that I had to say, can we move elsewhere and sit on another part of the restaurant? Because I couldn't hear myself think, let alone talk to my friend, and she agreed with me it was the same. Now that person didn't know that they were disturbing me, and I would never have told them so, because they have a naturally loud voice. And why do they have a naturally loud voice? Because they're probably one of many in a growing up scenario where everyone's talking over the top of everyone else and you want to be heard, so they all learn to speak loudly. And that is a projection of the throat chakra out. And when people hear them, it's too jarring for soft-spoken people, so they step back. On the other side of the fence, there are people who speak so softly, you're saying, pardon, and you have to say, would you speak up? Those are people who've usually been told, don't speak, be quiet, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. So you can understand here that when a voice is used psychologically, the way it's used is all relative to the way people have demonstrated how to speak, how they want you to speak, what they want you to speak about, when they want you to speak, and why they want you to speak at that particular moment and not another moment, and so on and so on. And your brain has all that stored back here telling you how to perform. And perform means speak. And speak you will, because you have to. You have to ask for what you need and what you want, and to demonstrate and tell what you're giving and sharing in some way to other people. But what if you were deaf? You can make noises, but no one's taught you how to speak. You would be grunting. Okay? Some of you have probably seen movies like Planet of the Apes, and the first half of the movie he's not talking and all you hear is these grunts coming out of people's voices. So quite unique. We had to watch. What are they doing? Okay, well that's what we did as babies. We watched everybody and we copied them, and when they started talking we copied the words they spoke, and by the time we're about 20 months we have probably about 20 words we know. By the time we're 2, we have hundreds of words. We might not know what they all mean, but we can repeat them. So in the same way, we can sing, okay, because someone sings around us, so we copycat. If no one sings around us, then we tell ourselves, we don't sing, I can't sing. I can tell you over the years when I've had people tell me they can't sing and I put them through singing exercises, they find they can sing. And most importantly, you have to understand as you listen to me that I'm talking, my voice goes up and down. I embellish sounds so that I can make a good point on something or other that you can hear, listen and follow me. Well, that's singing in a speaking voice. So if you can speak, you can sing. But if you can't hear, then you don't know what sounds are like unless someone lets you feel it as they talk. So put your hand on your face right now and talk, and you will feel your cheek vibrating as you talk. Put it on your throat and you will feel your vibrating your hand in both cases. Put it on your chest and you will still feel that vibration, even though it's low and farther away from the throat chakra. Now think about an opera singing or someone who can hold their breath quite a long time, slowly letting that breath out, singing. Okay? It vibrates. Now think about someone playing a musical instrument right next to you and you're enjoying it. What's it doing? It's vibrating your aura and you're feeling happy and content because the music's nice. But what if they're playing, it's a child and they're just learning and they're playing and it's all flat and sharp and and you're sitting there, oh my God, what do? You put earplugs in because you don't want to spoil them learning. But at the same time, you don't want to tell them stop playing that instrument because it will tell them a different story about how loud sound is or not loud, So shutting a door can be helpful, but you have to make sure the child understands I'm giving you a quiet time for you to really practice in this room or on your own so that nobody disturbs you. So you're doing a really good job in this room. If you go in and say I'm shutting the door because it sounds awful, they'll never learn. So it's all about tact. It's all about the way you say things to people, and that is sound. And it's all about the words you use. I once met someone who'd studied all the big long words, like 3 and 4 parts to the word, like extraordinarily or something like that. I can't think of a word that's that long right now, but you can see it's much harder to say than what. It's just one word, one syllable. A lot of words have lots of syllables, lots of collaging of shush and tuts and especially if you're in Japan. It's very difficult for us to say an S and a T together. Tuts, So there's a lot of learning in the way we speak, and the way we express with the speaking is the facial muscles, which is something I'm working on now in terms of myself, which is why I've been coughing on some of the shows, because I'm pressing an emotional button relative to the words I'm saying, the memories that I'm running at the time, and my history in terms of the DNA and the RNA of my family and all the people I've met throughout the world. And believe you me, I've, according to Japan alone, 20,000 people, according to my spirit guides, England, before I even left the country, 50,000 people, and Europe and Egypt and South America and Canada, and the list goes on. It's impossible to know how many people I've actually talked to physically in that sense. Or now let's come into the video that you're listening to today. All the videos I've made, the radio shows I've been on around the world, I've lost count. I don't even write them down anymore. It's just my life I live and the things I do. And so when I say to the spirit world, how many people have I directly or indirectly talked to, they say millions and millions more. I can't prove it, I can't disprove it, I don't try and be famous. I don't, tell people you have to follow me or whatever. I just do what I do. And I will tell you that on social, before everything went wrong with COVID, I had 10,000 people on nearly every one following me. Now today, I'm lucky if I've got 300. Why? Everybody's saying I don't want to be on that social networking. I want something different. I want to see people. I want to hear people. I want to talk to people. I want to have new beginnings. I want to start in new directions. And it always comes just like it did in your birthing, with a beginning. And the beginning always comes with open up your mind, your heart, to hear, see, feel, touch, smell, and taste. Your 5 senses, in other words, they're very important, and you need to use them. So where does all that information get stored, besides in the back of your brain? Well, it's in every cell in your body. And I've talked about this many times on my show, Journey into an Unknown World, which is now up, as I said, on soundcloud.com/Dr. Margaret Speaks. And so if you've enjoyed this talk and the reference I've made to our past shows with me and Katie Kamara, then you need to realize that that's the tip of the iceberg in terms of bringing information to you from 2 generations, mine being the old one and Katie's being the new. So different perceptions on how people today see us in this world. I lean towards the physicality of everything because being born during 1942 World War bombing scenario going on the moment I was born, and hearing so many people talking about the damn Germans and these things. So by the time my dad came home from the war in 95, I was 92, 93, 94. Yeah, I was 3, coming up for my 4th birthday. And so you can imagine just how much information I was hearing from the adults talking about the war. And after the war was over, then the next 10 years, England was rebuilding all the bombed out sites. And so again, all we heard about was the repair as a result of the war. And by the time I was mid-teenager, we were finally hearing about England rebuilt. So now what are we going to do next? And so people started to think about doing away with red telephone boxes and putting up new phones that were on a stand in the street that you could just go up to and put your copies in and make a call and not be enclosed. Well, a lot of people complained about that because being in a phone box was private. Nobody could hear what you were saying. But now people are on the phone and people are walking past you, they can hear everything you're saying. And then there were people who were calling the phone box from another phone box. It was very interesting. And we adapt. And now look, we've got cell phones. And look at those. They're not connected from phone to phone. They're connected by a computer, by zeros and ones. And I can write. I don't have to talk. I can text my message. Have we come a long way or not in 100 years? I think so. And so where we're at now is something I've been talking about forever, is all the children born now are psychic. And I'm psychic, and I was born psychic, and I know the journey and how horrible it was, and how much I saw the nightmares of seeing people being murdered in prisons or war camps. I didn't even know what a prisoner of war camp was, but I was seeing and hearing and smelling. I was even smelling burned bodies. I mean, there was just a horror. And when I think about Afghanistan and the Middle East and all the bombing between Israel and it's just terrible. I know what they're going through because I went through it. Okay, there are men who went to war, Vietnam and all these things. They know how bad it was. The Japanese, fight until you die. Not fight for the purpose until you live and have a good life. Fight to die was the concept after the wars ended. Well, that's changed. Now these children are coming in and their energy is fight to survive new ways, to bring out into this world something that will prepare even more futuristic people to come. And so I've been talking about sound. Sound, coming back to your voice, to the musical instruments you play, to the earth rumbling deep within its bowels, to the skies having rumblings from planes up there. We've learned by having COVID, and we've talked about this on our shows too, that this world is healing, whether we like it or not, in its natural instinct. This world that we live on is billions of years old. And why do we insist in thinking that we are the original species? When we see bones from ancient relics of prehistoric dinosaurs, why do we think there was no life here for us? Why do we insist that we have to look like we are today back then? Who built all those giant things that are so heavy that we couldn't even begin to imagine how they moved it? What if there was a species living here that could lift those big stones because they were 100 feet tall? What would your perception be? If you're looking down at a small brick, it would be the same as yours now. If you're bending down to pick up a rock on the pathway, you wouldn't think twice about it, and you put it in your pocket. Or if you were 100 feet tall, wouldn't you bend down and pick up a bigger rock? Because your perception is looking for bigger rocks relative to your size. You would not be looking for the tiny, tiny ones that we would be looking for. Because they're useless to you. They're just like grit, sand. But a big rock to you, if you're 100 feet tall, would feel like a big stone to us. And we'd struggle to carry it from here to there. So in the same way, a 100-foot man or woman of the species of the time could pick up a rock that is probably a ton in weight and move it with reasonable ease to where they want to put it. But then again, why do we think that we have to move everything ourselves? That in the past, that we, or whoever was alive here, had to move everything by hand? Or maybe we get into spaceship mind and we say, okay, they have some kind of machine that could move things. And we try and use our own consciousness of what machines we have here in our, in time, in this year, and modernize it and update it and give it a few electrical impulses to make it a bit different. Well, why do we have to even do that? Well, the inspiration here is not to be like the ancient ones, but to understand we in our own time and in our own way can adapt to what we've grown up with and move things forward in a new style and a new way. And if we go back in time to the ancient ones, whoever they were, it was no different for them. They just felt, we're here, we have to do this and this, and from our point of view, our skills, our talents, we will do ABC. And they did it. And they didn't think much about it. And because the earth is billions of years old, we have to also understand that the polarities of this planet have been changed at least 6 times. And if you think about 6 times into billions of years. That's not very often if you're living on this planet. So how would we know where the original poles were? Well, we could look for magma that's cooled, and we could find magnets of things that are magnetized by force of contact in terms of explosions here. We can find holes in the earth that are millions of years old, but they're still young compared with billions. So who was here? Well, how big were they? How tall were they? Well, we can go through imagination, we can recreate, but where is the real truth? I once went to my spirit guides into the halls of learning in the spirit world, and I said, I want to see the earth before we humans were on it. And do you know what they said? It's not in your records. What do you mean it's not in my records? So then they explained that in order to be aware of, we'll call them ancient aliens now, and go into their hall of records, in the Akashic records, I have to be an alien. And because I'm not an alien, I can't go into it because the vibration would destroy my vibration. So they're protecting me from my own stupidity. Why would I want to put myself in a vibration that would destroy my existence? I wouldn't want that. Now, if I bring that into an everyday consciousness, it's like me saying, I'm going to put you in space with no suit. And even if I put you in space with a suit, what would you get out of it? Other than the ooh-ah of unseen stars, you would get fear. You would be afraid you run out of oxygen. You would be afraid that you would not get into a safe place where you could be in your normal way. So my spirit guides explained to me that if I went into the vibration of another dynamic in a time not known or understood by myself as I am now, that I would destroy my spirit, myself. That was a hard one to accept at the time because I really wanted to know what this earth was like. But I did get compensation because what they did show me is, for example, the Easter Islands, and I saw the statues and they're very big and tall, and I've had to wait all these years for someone to finally go there and start digging down and start saying the whole body is there. Now think about this. Where are all the trees, they said? Well, and there wasn't just ocean around it. It wasn't an island. It was an extension of other land that was above the water. In other words, the water was not where it was. Okay? So when I asked Spirit, about where was all the water, and they just made me get a bottle and put some of my children's marbles in that at that time. And then, so the water was just not full bottle, it was just there, like this much in a bottle, about yay much. And the marbles in the bottom. And they had me rocking it backwards and forwards. And so the marbles were chinking and making. So, and I'm going, okay, well, what's this about? And they're saying, well, this is what it's like when you look at the Akashic records in your world. You can see the marbles moving around, you can see the water helping and moving them around, but the marbles have weight, their energy. Now they had me fill the bottle all the way up with water and still move the marbles around in the bottle, but I could not hear them. And this was the way they explained to me that we species are attuned to the vibration of hearing in this planet. And so everything on this planet creates energy. And over the years, as I've listened to this and understood the importance of sound, echoes, reverberations, vibrations, I use, for example, a violin to explain the friction of the bow on the strings, and you see after a while that the bow starts to wear out because of the friction. And so in the same way, our surface of the earth begins to wear out through the friction of sound. And here we are, all these years now, forward in time, where the earth has always had friction, and has evolved with oceans being changed, the north and south poles being changed and so on, that this whole planet has gone through a lot of changes, and that we are not able to see those changes or to know if we've been in embodiment as aliens from another planet or whatever, because we are in this time now, and this time now is about sound. And so I made a show on my show, Journey into an Unknown World, about the change is upon us. It's up on YouTube as well. I always make sound radio show, and I also make videos. So either way you can see what I'm talking about. And I want you to understand that this leads us to the miracle of yourself. We did a show on this, Katie and I. The miracle of yourself is you're a living, breathing being that resonates sound. When you walk across the room, your clothes swish. The animals hear it. It's out of your range, but they hear it. When you are holding your breath, trying not to breathe because you're hiding, your movements are heard by someone if they're listening. Could be a mouse nearby. It could be a cat on the wall looking at you. But whatever it is, someone, something can hear you that's living. So when you say of your parents, I don't want to talk to you, and you shut your mouth, you're saying thousands of words, because your brain is processing everything that you're thinking. And though you haven't vocalized those words are coming away from your body through cellular neuromuscular memory, and someone else is feeling those words hit their aura, and so they can then take those words in energy form into their brain and break it down and tell you what you're thinking. Might not be exactly the same words, but believe you me, they will have advice relative to what you're questioning and what you think. So no, we're not alone. No, we're not forgotten. No, we can isolate ourselves in a little hut and say, I'm never going to talk to anyone again. But the animals will come by because they know you're there. They can hear you moving around in the house. And when you go outside and you walk on the grass, you're thumping away. You don't realize the ants are hearing you, or the beetles are hearing you. Everything else that's around you is connected to you. Years ago, when I was working, I was sitting on a log up on common land, reading a book, and suddenly I was aware that ants were crawling up my feet. And Socrates came straight into my mind and said, don't move, stay still. And with his energy, with mine, those ants turned around and crawled off my foot. And he showed me that his energy was not of this world. Those ants didn't know his energy, so they left me because it was strange to them. And the next thing I sat doing was watching the ants taking food and carrying other things into the hive of, or whatever you call ants, I'm not sure, and slowly they all went back underground. And he then said to me, you see, you are a powerhouse. I was a powerhouse. And of course that was for me to understand that when I heal people, I have that kind of energy that can transform and change them. And with spirit guides working with me, yes, I'm a powerhouse, and I can help a lot of people get better. So here I'm saying, if you decide, you've watched me enough times, and you think you need some help, we can do an online Zoom arrange that wherever you are in any country in the world. But of course I do ask that you speak English, okay? I only learned French and Spanish and never practiced with it very much over the last 50 years, so a lot of it's gone. I can hear and understand a bit, but I'm not good at speaking. So, sorry folks, if you want a session with me, you've either got to turn up with an interpreter or you have to be able to speak my language. Now that brings me to another point, sound. If you hear someone speaking in a foreign language, though you can't understand them, you can watch their face and their body language, and you can get a general idea about whether they're happy or sad, whether they're talking about something serious or something not serious, and so on. So we're not deaf and dumb to what we can see with our eyes. But what if you're someone like Helen Keller, who was deaf and blind, and yet someone came into her life and gave her signing in such a way in her hand that she not only went on to be a public figure, but to also speak. Isn't that amazing? And in the overview, we have to now say that there are many of us who come to this earth with talents that are way beyond anything that one would expect a person to have. And those people are pioneers in their own way. They struggle, they go through lots of ups and downs, and little by little they begin to understand that their woe, whatever it might be, I'm using that word, W-O-E, because it is, oh, woe is me. I'm so not in some way. And so allowing that drama to come forward and work with it and use it on a daily basis opens a door to something greater. Okay? And if I talk about myself, being able to hear spirit voices and repeat those things that they say to another adult who's alive, and see them cry or laugh or something as a result of what I said as a 2-year-old through up to about 10, was overwhelmingly satisfying to know that I was taking their pain away. Meanwhile, I'm in my home with my parents, my mother a cripple and in pain all the time, my father post-traumatic stress disorder, and what we see here is trauma at home all the time, day in, day out. And so no matter what was going on outside of me with my psyche, with the joy of helping people, I was in my own way. I'm looking at my dog who's wandering around. I was in my own way wondering, will I ever be happy? I'm making these other people happy by giving them messages that I'm hearing these voices, but I am not happy. Well, I'm afraid I took that into 2 marriages. I was unhappy, hoping that my partner would make me happy, until I finally understood that the only person that could make me happy was me. And so I say to you, if you are disgruntled, upset, worried, and you're throwing this around in your family environment, it won't be long before everyone is unhappy, upset, worried, and unbalanced too. It's like a disease. One person brings a negative into the house, and if they're not open and receptive to listening to what others have to offer in a way to bring an understanding forward that would be a better situation, then it won't be long before that one person will pull down the family to a point where they're all in umbrage, they're all angry, they're all wanting the solution to be made. And the more they try and find a solution, the worse it becomes. So I want you to understand spiritually that your brain is the vehicle by which your spirit lives in this body. Your spirit says, I think, therefore I am. Your brain, in thinking the I am scenario, says, all that is all of my creation. That's what we say God said. But in reality, all that is in our world individually is our own creation. So once we're born, we are given the 5 abilities: to hear, to see, to speak, to smell and taste, and to feel with our body. Smell and taste is one really together, because, if you get a cold, you can't smell and can't taste. Okay, so that's clairsentience. Clairvoyance is the seeing, clairaudience is the hearing, and psychometry is the feeling of energy. And when you use these 5 senses, you are able to go outside the box. You're able to see people in a new light. You're able to find counseling and comfort in giving people insight and opportunities to grow themselves as you grow too. So the mirror image and the laws of karma is something else I talked about. The laws of karma in a simple way are: don't invade another person's space. Be responsible for what you do. You are not responsible for what others do. Okay? So only responsible for what you do. Being able to share yourself emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, and not judge other people who share their point of view, and understand that variety is the spice of life. So judge not, lest you be judged. And the next law, to understand that there is the mirror image. If you're angry, it won't be long before everyone else is angry around you. We copycat. We said that earlier in this talk. And I want you to understand that when you are in some way in the mirror image with others, you can go round in circles and get trapped. So freeing yourself from entrapment is important. And it only takes one idea to get outside the box, to move away and do something different. And the last law, to love God. And when you say you love God, to say that you love all folks, all people, all animals, all ants, all beetles, all things living on this planet, because without them, the oneness would not exist. Without the harmony and unity of everything on this planet, we would not grow and evolve. Plus, without controversy, contradictions, the unexpected to test us, we would not understand ourselves, nor would we understand this world we live in. And so appreciation of our environment is important. And today I want to bring to you the ultimate message that Spirit Guides are saying through me as I've been talking to you. And it is this. This world is a garden, and a garden needs tending. A gardener needs to be able to go out and do their bit. Each of us who live in different countries are gardeners. We have to say of ourselves, if I'm only clearing 2 yards of dirt and only bearing 1 cabbage in it, I have done something in recuperating this world. For that cabbage will grow, and it will go to seed, and if you collect the seed, you will have more seeds, and then be inspired to dig up a little bit more of the earth and put those seeds into the earth so that there be more cabbages, and in that way you would be sharing those cabbages with more people. A cabbage is a very important symbol of how close the leaves are, in that we need to understand how close we all are to one another. We are so tightly locked to one another as the leaves of a cabbage are, that there is no moment when we are not connected to the oneness through another person. We are life here on planet Earth, and as such it is our duty to repair those things that we have destroyed, to put more trees in the ground, to take away the rubbish and destroy it once and for all, so that it is no longer used. The rubbish is the equipment we thought we needed, which we now see we don't. The rubbish is the plastic. The rubbish is the unused parts that are living examples of something we believe we need that we don't need, such as wrappings on food. There is so much that you have learned to use that you don't need to use. During the war, we had newspapers to wrap our meat in. During the war, we had newspapers to use in the bathroom. There was no paper anywhere but newspapers. Why? Because everybody wanted to know what was going on in the war. And of course, not everything was known because it was far away from England. But in another sense, it was also very close to France and Spain and the rest of the world and America. So travel by sea became popular, and given time, travel by sea became too slow, and travel by a plane became the in thing. Now I say to you, having talked about sound, that our next great energy change is sound. We already know that sound reverberates, it regenerates, rejuvenates many parts of the human body with several equipments that have been made. This new energy, this new understanding of how we reverberate through our psyche and how the earth reverberates through its natural core of the soul energy of all that is, then we also can understand that aliens can fly in our skies through the energy of sound and the reverberation of magnetic polarity. So welcome to the next 3,265 years where science will evolve to bring sound into your homes and to every piece of equipment that you think of. You will find this world much changed. And because sound can be harmful and also helpful, one must say here, do not destroy the world with atomic bombs that carry sound and reverberate and destroy your earth. Be aware that sound can nurture a cabbage to grow bigger and better. Yes, there's been farmers doing that, playing music to their trees. Everything is open to reverberation. Everything is open to growth under reverberation. Everything is evolving in your world. So stop trying to hold on to the past. You've walked it, you've done it, you've left it. And those of you who are younger are not interested in what was. They are interested in what will be. So teach them to be wise, sensible, and inspired to create the things that will be needed on planet Earth. And so in this last talking, I, Cornelius Tacitus, speaking through my medium, Margaret Rogers Van Coote, say to you categorically that when I was alive in the royal quest to let Rome be a great force of change, I can tell you it was done. And it was done well, but it was done with violence and aggression. This cannot be the same in the Aquarian age. You must understand that the changes for this world rely on unity, harmony, and sharing. Each country will have pillars that will generate energy around the world. This has been in effect before. You've seen pyramids, you speculate on them. We tell you that is nothing compared with what was here long before. And so we say to you, rest, meditate, sleep. Ask yourself, what could you create that would lead to a new generation who will come into embodiment and create those things? You see, what you imagine today, a new generation will create. You can see it from your past, you understand this. So on this simple note, I say to you, we are grateful that we can speak through this woman in her character and personality to you. But we want you to understand that we can also speak in our own way, in our own thoughts, to reach you, to help you understand that we too are evolved, and we too are with you to evolve you. And together we evolve and we create new species. So don't worry about where you came from. Worry about where you're going. And understand and appreciate all that you have had and will have. And on this note, I'm leaving this woman, and she will be alone to speak to you. Okay. When I was very young, spirit guides were talking through me like that, rock and roll go, because I had no blocks, I had no reason to block it, I didn't know what it was. These children that are born now who are psychic, they don't know. They just come up to you and just pat you a little bit and say, it's okay, don't worry, you'll have money next week. And then next week comes, and out of the blue someone gives you some money, and you're like, wow, how did my child know? Okay, so I want you to understand that when I say that I've been working on getting a class up, I've been doing it here with people, real attending students, and I'm working on getting that up on Samaris to make it available for students to study. And the reason it's there is for you to study, and if you've got children, to use it and teach your children all about the psychic ability skills. And when you're doing that, you're going to change their lives. You're going to make them feel so much more stable and confident, and because you'll be developing your own psychic skills too, in order to help your children, you will change, and that will change your lifestyle. And so you're working in a way indirectly okay, you're working directly with the infrastructure of the world. And over time, when everyone is focused on the infrastructure of the world, there will be a big change in the way humans correlate their relationships. I'm feeling from my spirit guides that they want to say here, forget your race, forget your color, forget where you've lived in the past. Start thinking where you want to be in 10 years' time. Okay, so I've said that message for you from them, through me. And okay, wait a minute. This is Master Chang, who's my healer guide, and there are many others. I have hundreds of entities that I channel, but these two are always with me when I'm doing radio or teaching or lecturing. Okay, Chang says, the human body is a violin. When someone comes into your house, they change the energy by being there. They're rubbing your energy, your aura, and you play a tune. In other words, you respond to them. Don't forget that. All right. So I'm asking to leave me alone because I want to do the pitch bit, which I'm not very good at. As you know, there was no music today, and Katie is going to listen to this later. She's dealing with a lot of things right now, so please be kind and gentle and send her loving wishes. And so I'm going to end this now and send it over to her, and she'll put it up for you to watch tonight. So you will have understood that by the time you've listened to all this later on tonight. And I will say that if you want to talk to me, you can send to me Dr. Margaret, margaretrvc@gmail.com, or PROF Margaret, margaretrvc@gmail.com. So Doctor is short for Dr. Dr. and PROF is short for Professor. Write to me. Let me know what you're interested in, what you think about the show, what you would like to hear more on the show. What if you've gone to my radio shows on soundcloud.com, Ask Dr. Margaret, then please let me know about that. If you go to Katie and you click on her radio show, which I didn't write down in front of me because I always forget it, so I'm sorry about that. I have to empty my brain. Spirit guides, leave me alone. Soma Fusion, somafusionmedia.com. That's it. Yes, go there. You'll find her radio show and all the other things that she's got there. And we'll like to see you sign up on Facebook or LinkedIn or Nextdoor. Whatever I've got is available. Leave me a message somewhere. I'll get back to you somehow. So thank you for listening to me, and I really do appreciate that you have stuck with me all this time. And I'm going to end now and say goodbye. So goodbye, and thank you for listening.